Sure. Hi, everyone. Nice to see you all again. So here we are for another webinar from Cambridge Finance. My name is Maria Wiedner, and I am the CEO, founder, and main trainer of Cambridge Finance. And thanks so much for joining me. Okay, so let me start this webinar by sharing my screen. So let me just share here. So today we're going to talk about, let me just find video panel. Okay, so today we're going to start talking about best practice in real estate financial modeling. Okay, so what I want to talk about today is really how we are going to build a financial model from scratch. So I want you to be aware of how to do this, that you're mindful when you're building your models, that you kind of like understand what the process should look like. Okay, so when I'm talking about best practice in financial modeling, my first question is how we're going to start this financial model. Okay, and then I always ask my students how they start their financial models. And then they will normally gonna say, okay, I'm gonna open the spreadsheet and then start doing the inputs, which is okay, but it's not really what we should be doing when we are doing financial model. Okay, we should be thinking about the process of creating this financial model, where we are and where we want to get to. So in terms of understanding what financial model is. So if you're going to build a financial model, you should be, aware of what it is. Like it's really an automated calculation. So then, like you don't need to recreate the wheel, as we say, every time. So your financial models is essential for your productivity when you are building your business plan, when you're doing real estate valuations. It's very important that you're aware of like what you're trying to achieve. Okay. And then we normally use Excel because it's what I say is virtually free. Everybody has access to Excel in their desktops. So it's quite easy to get it and then get going. So it's like the first part of when we're doing investment analysis. And then the one thing about financial model is that it can get complex. It can, like make it grow very quickly. So that's why we are here today to talk about, like before you start opening Excel and putting your inputs there, that you actually think about the best practice when you are doing this from scratch. Okay. So building a financial model from scratch in terms of how to go about it is, so there is a process, as I mentioned. So I always like to say, okay, we need to first understand the business case, and I'm going to go through step by step, but I just want to give you the overview of what we are trying to achieve here. So the phase one should be to understand the business case, really where we are and what are the results that you want. Create the layout, and then develop the formulas, and then revise the model structure, and then we need to test it, and then we need to document it, and then we can deploy it. And always my joke is always like, and then be rich and famous, right? But this is to start with. I want you to understand it is a process, and we need to be mindful of this process. Okay, so now let's go through step by step. So the first phase is, and I think this is fundamental, and it's a part that everybody skips, and they go into the model heads on, like doing the inputs and so on. And I think it's not the most strategic way to start a financial model. So what I say is that you need to ensure that you understand the business plan before creating the model. Okay, and what do I mean by business plan? You need to know like what is that you are trying to achieve, and what kind of in this case, property, real estate, or land you are going to invest in, what you're going to analyze. Because what we need to do is create fit for purpose model. So let me give you an example here. It's often that people come like, okay, I want to do the valuation of a supermarket, a grocery store, and then, or an office, or, and then they say, okay, I have this model here that's an investment model, and it's mainly created for a shopping center. But I'm gonna use this for valuing the supermarket because, like it's real estate anyways. This is not the way to approach it, right? Like, because it's not fit for purpose. So what I want you to understand is that, like, okay, so what kind of asset do I have here? Like, what is the, is it land that I'm going to buy the land, I'm going to get planning permission, I'm going to develop, and then I'm going to sell it at the end? Or is it already, like an asset that is already in existence and you have already tenants in there? So for example, if it is an office that is already there is already a tenant there paying rents, and then all you need to do is, analyze that you're gonna buy this, you're gonna, get the income, wait for the market to do whatever the market needs to do. So if this is, you need to understand really like what is the vision for this investment, so then you can create financial models. Okay, don't try to feed in everything in one financial model, because otherwise your model will not be fit for purpose, you get lost. Okay, so that's why we might end up with different financial models for different types of assets, which is much better than having one like all dancing and singing that you're gonna try to fit in everything under the sun, because you will get lost. Okay, so make sure that when you are, before you build, you understand the business case, what you're trying to achieve, because if it is land that you're going to develop and you're going to sell, it will be very different from an asset that you're going to just buy and then receive rent day one. Okay, so, and if it's a shopping center, it will be different from a hotel, it will be different from an office, it will be different from data centers, and so on and so forth. Okay, so make sure that this is pretty understood, and then, you understand where the income is coming from, what are the costs, how is coming in, how is going out, how are we going to make money out of this investment. Okay, so this is what I want you to start. You don't even need to start, opening spreadsheets. You just need to understand really what is the way to, what you're trying to achieve here. And then we need to, once you've understood the business case, it's time to create the layout. And then for creating the layout, what do I mean by layout is pretty much like where your inputs are and then where your outputs are. Always what I say is that I start with the outputs first. And because when I do financial models from scratch for clients, for example, I need to understand how they make their decisions, the investment decisions. And then this is pretty much understanding the KPIs. They understand like, okay, they just after a profit, or you're after an IRR, a net present value. Because if you just do like are you interested only on the value of the asset based on the profit on cost, or like you're looking for a residual valuation for the land based on IRR, like you need to understand like what is the KPI, what is this indicator, this key performance indicator that you are going to use, your client, your boss are going to use in order to make this decision. Okay, so once you understand what are the outputs that we call, then you can work out what is the method that we need to use, i.e. are we going to use a cash flow, or just like a profit and loss will work, or just like you need to build the 3 financial statements, a balance sheet, an income statement, and a cash flow. And then if you normally in property in the private markets, we deal pretty much on the cash flow basis, because the information is more opaque in the private market. So cash is still, I say cash is queen. So therefore, like it's we need to understand where the cash is coming from. So we look at on a cash flow model. So we need to understand what the inputs are, so then you can work out this method that you need: income statement, balance sheet, cash flow. And then once you understand this process, then you can think about your inputs. Because if you start the inputs first, you might get lost. You might put like too many inputs, everything that you can think of: the rent, the growth, the vacancies, the costs, and so on. But you might not need everything, okay? So be strategic how you create your models first. Think about the business plan. Think about how you are going to make these investment decisions. What are the KPIs? So then you can work backwards and say, okay, I will need a discounted cash flow. I will need, because I will need a net present value. I will need an IRR. Okay, so this is the main process. And when you create the layout, make sure it's simple and elegant. This is so I'm gonna talk about it in the golden rules, but make sure it's simple and elegant, and it's easy to follow. Okay. Another thing on the layout that I wanted to mention is that where the inputs and outputs live in your workbook, in your spreadsheet, right? I would normally say that I create what I call like a dashboard, and then what is the dashboard? It's like the summary of this investment, so that my inputs and my outputs, they live in the same sheet. They are like next to each other, because the way to visualize will be easier, because then you can say, okay, what happens if I change one input here? You don't need to create the whole data table, sensitivity analysis. But say you want to change just like the rent, and then you can easily check what is the output, what's going to do to your outputs, right? So my way of doing is that I will create a kind of like a one page where the inputs and the outputs live together, okay? The third phase is to develop the formulas, okay? I'm going to talk later in the next 15 minutes more about the formulas, the golden rules as well as the best practice. But when you build the formulas, make sure that it's simple and elegant as well. The main, I think, like when people come to my course, they expect just to do formulas and then very complex. And that the beauty of financial models is when the formulas are elegant, when the formulas are efficient. And I know this takes a lot of time, because normally like the starting point is that it's going to be overcomplicated because you just don't understand all the linkages. But then like once you start building more models, you start being more efficient with your formulas, and you start being like less the if, like hundreds of ifs, or like very complex formulas. So I think like the best financial modelers that I've come across, and hopefully I'm one of those, is that are the ones that can really simplify formulas in order to make this this financial model as efficient, robust as possible. Okay. Revise the model structure. This is the stepping back and looking and seeing if like you achieved what you wanted to achieve in the first place. Okay, it's okay to make changes once you are there, once you have kind of finished the model, but that's the way like we keep improving. A lot of times my formulas as well, like are kind of more complex to start with, but then once I revise it, I'm like, oh, actually I can simplify this. And that's the way to improve it. So keep revising the model, see if there's anything like to improve, always make it better, okay? And again, this is the point of transparency and simplicity. Once you revise it, you will go back and say, oh, okay, I can do this better, I can do this simpler, I can do this more transparent, okay? and then you can, start doing like some data validation, some checks to make it more user-friendly, okay? But the idea is to say, okay, have I achieved what I wanted to achieve? Is it simple? Is it efficient? Is it elegant? Is it beautiful as I envisaged when I started this process? And then the phase 5 is to test the model. Testing the model there are some processes that we go like, we can do some stress testing, and we can do some validations, data validations, as we mentioned. But I always say like the best way to test the model is to have common sense. And it sounds a bit like silly to say common sense, but like, what is common sense? But is your experience. So if you look at a financial model and say like, well, like the projections, are these financial projections feasible? Does it make sense? And so on and so forth. So I think this is one thing I really want you to understand, like, your pair of eyes, your experience will be the best source for testing the model. But there is like some process that we can put in place, like some, is this number the same as the number, like, is your construction cost the same as the distribution of costs in your cash flow over the period? You can do this. I teach people how to do this, but I always say, like, your experience, knowing where the numbers are coming from, and if they have the right impact in the model, in the outputs. This is one thing that will come with experience, but it's important to have. Documentation. So one, it can be as complex. Sometimes I spend a lot of time doing documentation. Sometimes I take like as long as the model itself to write the documentation. But it doesn't need to be. If you are just using the model, then it can be like very much like a description page, and then a log of like updates. But sometimes, like I have to write like the whole manual for the model, how I build the model, how I build the formulas, what the formulas are doing, what the assumptions are there. Okay, so the documentation should have like a description, should have your assumptions, and should have an update log at least. Okay, so my final tips, it will be to format for clarity and ease of use, protect the model by securing inputs and with passwords. I'll tell you how to do this. But I think, like, for me, the final tip is to really like think through this process before you start building your models. Or if you have already models that you're using, check and see if the person that built it was thinking about, like this whole process. Is the model fit for purpose? Is it, like do you have a feel that it was built according to what you expected in terms of business plan? Is it easy to use for you? If it's not, then probably some part of the process got lost there. Okay, and then I'm just gonna talk about the golden rules for financial models, which are pretty much my tips, okay? Because I build a lot of models, and I don't want to make my mistakes that I made over the years, especially like if you build models like well into the night. So these are tips that help me not to make mistakes when I'm building the models, okay? So my rule number 1 is that the model should be simple and elegant. Okay, make sure that it's not complex. I always say, like, built is everything. However, again, built is in the eyes of the beholder. But if it answers the question of simplicity and elegance, if for you it's simple, if for you it's elegant, this is rule number 1. Okay, don't overcomplicate. Make sure that it's fit for purpose. It's as you want it to be. Consistency in formulas, so it's one formula per row or column. This is important. This is where models get complex. Don't break formulas in cell D and E. Like, they should all follow the same formula. So you have one formula, you drag to the right or drag down. No, don't use like following complex, so the simplicity and elegance. Don't overcomplicate your formulas. I say here no more than 4 ifs. I find 4 ifs already like very big already, but I think I can live with 4 if functions. Okay. If you are thinking of like going beyond 4 ifs, then the solution for it is to use intermediate calculation. So it's just like breaking the formulas in steps and then linking them afterwards. Do not hard code values. Never, ever, ever. Okay, if there is one rule here that you should remember, is the number 5. It should be number 1. But this is if there is one source of error in financial models, is the hard coding. And hard coding means putting a number within a formula. Never do this. Add sensitivity tables and color code it, and then protect the sheet. Okay. If you don't know how to do any of this, please do join my courses. So the rule number 1 is simple and elegant. As I mentioned, the simpler the appearance and the formulas, the better. Rule number 1, okay? And then balance simplicity with elegance for visual clarity. So that's the reason why, like, some people say, oh, my formulas should not have more than, you should follow the rule of thumb, that like formula should not be longer than your thumb. But then it may mean that you have a lot of, small steps in between, and then, you're saying, okay, your formulas are simple, but the whole spreadsheet is kind of like a monster, because you have tabs over tabs over tabs over tabs. But yeah, but it's a balance. I always understand. For me, I prefer a more complex formula with more ifs, but then, like with a better layout. Rule number 2, consistency in formulas. So one formula per row or column. And then you have to copy this across, without modifying. This will make sure that your formulas are, like it's consistent, that you have like if you don't need to keep changing it. So if there is a difference between a calculator or a bad financial model and a good financial model, is this idea that you have one formula that will pick up, like that is that will pick up all the inputs, and then and make sure that it's applicable throughout the line at least. Okay. One of the exceptions is that I use this anchor cell technique. Is just like one starting point might be like different than across the whole line, but that's the only exception that I use. And then the rule number 3 and 4, they go together, because if you think you can't use only 4 ifs, then you need to create intermediate calculations. Okay. But the main thing is that you need to simplify formulas. If you're thinking, like I also teach this in the course, if you're thinking of using like lots of ifs, it might be there's formulas, the functions in Excel that should be used instead. Okay. For example, here I convert dates or split lease events into separate tables, just to know like when these lease events are going to take place, the rent of upwards, the breaks, the expiries, and so on and so forth, and then look up these dates into when I'm going to do the rent roll calculation. This is very, very important. Never, ever, ever use hard-coded values, ever, okay? So hard-coded means putting a number into a formula. You have to use input cells for variables, ensuring flexibility. Okay, so you have, if it's an input, make sure that it's explicit input, and then you link it with your formula. And as I mentioned, if there's one source of errors in financial models, is this hard-coded, okay? Add sensitivity tables, the sensitivity analysis. Sensitivity tables, they are, like the what-if analysis. So if you change one input, what's going to happen to your outputs, and you use the data table in there. the good thing about sensitivity tables is that if you have like hard-coded values in your formulas, it may well be that your sensitivity analysis doesn't work. So therefore, it's easier to spot mistakes, okay, if you run sensitivity tables. And then an example is test how market growth affects the IR, for example. Color code, it's the input versus output colors. Make sure that your inputs and outputs, they have different colors, okay? So then people can say, okay, I'm gonna change the inputs, this color, and not the outputs, which are like your formulas, which should be another color. And I'll show you how to do this now. And then what we can do is at the end, protect our sheet with a password, or without a password as well. Like, it's up to you. Like, the password will protect you more. And you can leave the inputs unprotected, so then people can change. You can change the inputs, but then the formulas, the outputs will be locked, okay? And then I like to give an example. So maybe in 2 minutes here, I can give an example of how to do this color coding, okay? And the protecting the sheet. So if you have, for example, this is a financial model, and then normally people say like your inputs should be in blue and your outputs should be in black fonts. As you see, the blue and the black fonts, they get, pretty mixed up. It's quite hard to differentiate. So normally what I like to do is create a little bit more highlighting the sheet. If you were going to do this like line by line, so say you want this to be, highlighted yellow, like if it's an input highlighted yellow, this is a formula, so no highlighting. If you do this manually, it's going to take a long time. So what we can do here is use the go-to function, which is the function fnf5. And then we can go here to special, and then we can do here constants, and then untick text logicals and errors, and okay. And this is going to highlight all your input cells, okay? And then there is this thing here called cell styles. And then in cell styles, there is already an input, like they say that this is the input cell. You can click that and then it's gonna show your input cells. If you don't like the style, you can use another style if you want, but if Microsoft is saying that this is the input style, who am I to say it's not an input? So I use this kind of input. So F5, go to special, constants, untick text, logicals and errors, and go. And then it's going to be highlighted, and then you can do cell styles. You can use whatever you want. The input should work because it's written there. And then if you hover over, right click, and then format cells here. And then if you go to protection and unlock it, right? I'm running a little bit quick here. Then what happens here as you unlock the cells, then if you go to review here and protect sheet, you can put a password there. I'm not going to put a password there, but if you put a password there, then you can only unlock with a password. But then what happens here is that if you say, okay, I'm going to change here from, my rent is not 50, my rent is 60, then that will work. But if you want to change here, the calculation here, then computer says, no, you can't do this. So it's a way for you to lock the formulas, the outputs, but you're going to unlock the input, so you can change the inputs, you can change your assumptions. Okay, so this is what I wanted to show you today in terms of best practice, okay, with an example as well. So, right, so this is, I think the main thing is to think about your financial model to start with. Business plan is very important. Make simple and elegant, and never hard code, okay, and then protect your sheet. Okay, I think this will be my main tips for you today. If you are interested in joining my course, this best practice is explained with a lot more details on the course. This was a very a short run here, But we do have some next courses coming up. So on 10th and 11th October, we're going to have an introduction to real estate development, investment, and finance. And then we're going to have the financial modeling courses from the 14th to 18th. And then they're broken into development and value-add strategies, financial modeling, and the real estate investment, financial modeling. And if you like to do all of them, then you get the certificate in real estate development and value-add modeling. If you are interested and you watch this video, then you can claim a 10% discount. So you just need to use the promo code CFWebinar10, okay? And that was it for me today. Thank you so much for joining me. And I hope I'll see you in the next webinar, but I hope I'll see you in our courses as well. By the way, these are in London or online, or you can also have this on demand, okay? So if you like this course, the sound of this course or the sound of my voice as well in my explanations, please join us. Thank you so much for attending, and I'll see you all soon. Thank you.